it's not nothing new in basketball that there's sort of welcome to the league moments, especially for heralded rookies. But of course, I want to see Caitlin treated fairly and appropriately in the league. I would say
the warning signs were loud, public, and impossible to ignore, yet nobody believed the WNBA power struggle would reach this breaking point so fast.
Yeah, I'll leave the specific question about the foul to my colleague, Commissioner Engelbert. I mean, I other than as a fan, obviously, it's not nothing new in basketball.
This is not a retirement story, and it is not a simple labor dispute either. What is unfolding right now inside the WNBA is a pressure fracture that has been building for years, quietly hidden behind growth headlines, viral moments, and sold-out arenas. The public sees expansion teams, record ratings, and a cultural surge powered by new faces, but behind closed doors, the league is dealing with something far more dangerous than bad PR. It is dealing with a loss of control over the very players it relies on to survive. The phrase "final goodbye" is not about players announcing farewell tours, and it is not about one superstar walking away in dramatic fashion. It is about a psychological shift that ownership did not expect, where players are no longer threatening strikes in unison, but instead quietly calculating individual exits. Overseas contracts, brand deals, and alternative career paths that weaken collective bargaining without ever triggering an official walkout. That is the part nobody wants to say out loud.
Basketball, that there's sort of welcome to the league moments, especially for heralded rookies. But of course, I want to see Caitlin treated fairly and appropriately in the league. I would say,
while league executives publicly maintain calm and continuity, the internal reality looks very different. Teams have been instructed to prepare for business as usual under an expired framework. Free agency timelines continue to move forward, and expansion machinery keeps spinning, but the emotional buy-in from players has never been thinner. The illusion of stability is being maintained through procedure, not confidence. What makes this moment so volatile is that both sides believe they are acting rationally. Owners see themselves as protectors of a fragile business model that has only recently begun to show signs of momentum. Players see themselves as the product finally generating that momentum, and therefore deserving a fundamental rewrite of how value is shared. The problem is not that one side is wrong. The problem is that both sides are operating under assumptions that cannot coexist.
it seems like she can take care of herself. She's a tough player. I think it may be lost on some people who are new to basketball in terms of a little bit of the controversy in the WNBA. What an incredible talent she is.
For years, the WNBA has functioned on a delicate balance of subsidization, patience, and long-term belief. Salaries were modest, travel conditions were criticized, and revenue sharing was largely symbolic because there was little revenue to divide. Players accepted this reality under the promise that growth would eventually change everything. That promise is now being called in. Ownership, however, views the present moment differently. From their perspective, they have already delivered on growth commitments through unprecedented salary proposals, expanded marketing budgets, and increased national visibility. Internally, those numbers represent a gamble, not a victory. Raising max contracts into 7 figures in a league that still operates in the red is seen as a leap of faith, not a concession forced by leverage.
Final Four is leading scorer, history of college basketball. So I look forward to watching her ongoing development in the league. I think ultimately this is very healthy for women's basketball.
This is where the disconnect becomes fatal. Players are not celebrating the raise because they believe the ceiling matters more than the percentage. Owners believe the ceiling is the concession. Players believe ownership is still holding the real prize behind the curtain. That philosophical gap is why the conversation has become tense, emotional, and quietly hostile. What complicates matters further is the emergence of generational stars who do not fit the historical mold. Caitlin Clark's arrival did more than boost ratings. It exposed how uneven the league's economic ecosystem actually is. Her presence brought attention, sponsorships, and casual fans at a scale the WNBA has never experienced. But it also magnified disparities between star power and compensation structures. When one player can move markets while earning a fraction of her cultural value, the system starts to look outdated overnight.
Well, in the WNBA, It's generating tremendous additional interest. In fairness to the other players and in fairness to Commissioner Engelbert, this didn't just start this year. Certainly,
this is where speculation becomes dangerous, because no star has officially announced an exit, yet the conversation has shifted from collective action to personal strategy. Agents are quietly exploring overseas options with fewer restrictions. Media deals and endorsement pipelines are becoming more attractive than traditional contracts. The threat is no longer a strike, it is apathy. Adam Silver's role in this narrative is often overstated publicly and underestimated privately. He is not negotiating the CBA directly, but his shadow looms over every conversation. The NBA's long-term financial support of the WNBA has created both security and dependency, and that dependency is now part of the tension. Players know the league exists partly because of that backing. Owners know it too. What neither side wants to admit is that this relationship complicates any attempt to mirror NBA-style revenue sharing. There is also an uncomfortable truth that rarely makes headlines. Not all players benefit equally from the current standoff. Stars with endorsement leverage can afford to wait, posture, and gamble. Role players, veterans nearing the end of their careers, and younger athletes without brand visibility cannot. This creates internal fractures within the Players Association that ownership quietly relies on. Unity sounds powerful in statements, but financial reality erodes it quickly. Historically, labor battles in sports are won by the side that can afford to wait the longest. Owners know this. They are not rushing because every day that passes without a deal increases pressure on players who need certainty. Free agency deadlines do not care about ideology. Training camps do not pause for principles. Careers are short, and that clock is always ticking louder for players than it is for executives. The idea that stars might quit is less about formal retirement and more about disengagement from the system as it currently exists. A player choosing to play overseas full-time, prioritize brand ventures, or simply refuse to be the face of league marketing campaigns sends a message without violating any contract. That kind of quiet resistance is far harder to counter than an organized strike. There is also old tea resurfacing that adds fuel to the fire. Former players have begun revisiting past grievances about travel conditions, marketing neglect, and broken promises, reframing them through the lens of today's growth. What once felt like growing pains now feels like exploitation to a new generation that refuses to wait another decade for progress. The expansion draft adds another layer of anxiety. New teams mean new opportunities, but they also mean more dilution of resources and more players fighting for limited financial upside. Expansion is celebrated publicly, but privately, it raises questions about sustainability. Growth without profit can only last so long before someone absorbs the cost. And right now, ownership is signaling that they will not absorb it alone. The league's confidence comes from legality and structure, not popularity. Under labor law, operations continue. Offers can be prepared. Deadlines remain firm. From a business standpoint, this is logical. From an emotional standpoint, it feels cold, and players are responding emotionally even if they cannot do so contractually. The most shocking part of this entire standoff is how quiet it actually is. There are no lockout banners, no canceled games, no emergency press conferences. Everything looks normal on the surface, which is exactly why it is so dangerous. Revolutions do not always announce themselves. Sometimes they show up as indifference. Speculation is already swirling about what happens if the union concedes on revenue sharing in exchange for immediate salary gains. Some see that as a win. Others see it as surrender that locks in structural inequality for another generation. The fear is not losing this negotiation. The fear is setting a precedent that growth will always be used as a promise instead of a payout. At the same time, ownership worries about opening a door they cannot close. Revenue. Sharing without stable profits is not generosity, it is risk transfer. Once percentages are agreed upon, rolling them back becomes nearly impossible. Owners are betting that patience will break resistance before precedent is set. What makes this moment feel like a final goodbye is the emotional distance forming between the league and its stars. Even those who will eventually sign contracts are doing so without enthusiasm. The trust is eroding. The belief that everyone is building toward the same future is fading. This is not the end of the WNBA, but it is the end of a chapter defined by patience and gratitude. Players are no longer asking to be included. They are demanding to be acknowledged as the engine. Ownership is no longer selling dreams. They are enforcing structure. Adam Silver is not broken because stars are leaving. He is under pressure because the old playbook no longer works. The league cannot rely on moral arguments about growth while simultaneously enforcing economic caution. That contradiction is finally visible to everyone involved. So the league will move forward, but it will never feel the same after this standoff. When the music keeps playing but belief is gone, the real damage has already been done. Let us know your views in the comments below.